So let's rewind. Cleveland selected Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round of this year's draft, snagging him with the 144th overall pick. But over the next 10 months, that 5th round flyer would ignite into something far greater. A quarterback destined to command the Cleveland Browns huddle as their future starter. In today's NFL, most players get paid based strictly on performance, but Shedeur, he's pioneering a new formula: performance plus prime equity. We're talking media rights, branding royalties, docuseries control, and merchandise revenue split, all infused into his rookie profile. Tabloid critics erupted in outrage as Shedeur Sanders' groundbreaking contract details leaked to the public. This so-called afterthought is no ordinary 5th rounder. With over 14,000 passing yards, a 70% completion rate, and a $4,600,000 0 cents deal embedded with prime equity potential, Shedeur isn't just rewriting headlines. He's reshaping the economic model of rookie quarterbacks. Critics mocked his draft fall, but what they never saw coming? The playbook buried inside his rookie contract. A strategy even seasoned front offices weren't prepared for. While most 5th rounders are clawing for a spot at training camp, Shedeur walked in with a $4.60 M contract and a mentality designed to upend the league's traditional power dynamic. And now we ask, how much faith do the Browns truly have in him, especially post-injury? Confidential or not, the numbers are public now. Shedeur's deal spans 4 years, worth $4,647,380 0 cents, with $447,380 0 cents fully guaranteed as a signing bonus, an almost unheard of figure for a 5th rounder. His first-year payout, nearly $1,300,000 0 cents. And yet, that's just the tip of the iceberg. According to NFL insider Jonathan Jones, Sanders inked his rookie deal, but here's the twist. He was earning significantly more from NIL deals in college. At Colorado, his NIL valuation soared to $6,500,000 0 cents, nearly $2 million 0 cents more per year than what the NFL is paying him now. Let that simmer. In essence, the league that calls itself the big leagues is offering less compensation than he earned as a collegiate athlete. And no, this wasn't due to a lack of talent. Shedeur slide had nothing to do with his arm or football. It had everything to do with leverage. NFL executives weren't just drafting a QB. They were engaging with a multi-dimensional enterprise. A brand, a legacy, a platform. The son of Coach Prime isn't merely a passer, he's a business magnate in cleats. Enter prime equity, a concept that transcends traditional player value. We're talking media power, personal brand, global fan engagement, streaming content ownership, and cultural influence, all rolled into one individual. And it rattled NFL executives to the core. Prime equity may not be an official clause yet, but it's very real. It signifies the moment a player's value is no longer confined to the gridiron. From YouTube empires to Twitch dominance to Instagram live streams raking in thousands on the spot, Shedeur is his own media network, and companies can no longer ignore that. Most rookies dream of landing a segment on ESPN. Shedeur, he's already got full-blown features running before his first pro snap. When we talk career completion rate, total passing yards, and charisma that commands headlines, we're looking at the type of player that frightens old-school front offices, because if this is the future, they're losing grip on control. Here's the twist. Cleveland even picked Gabriel 2 rounds earlier, giving him a contract worth $6,200,000 0 cents, despite Gabriel lacking Sanders' dominance, platform, and presence. But what Gabriel doesn't have is media gravity. Shedeur shifts culture. He creates momentum. So why did some teams hesitate? Because prime equity means athletes now speak like owners. Shedeur doesn't just ask for post-game quotes. He demands compensation for every moment of visibility. From appearance-based bonuses to 20% cuts of merchandise bearing his name to full creative rights over his behind-the-scenes content, this is uncharted territory. In the NFL, they're used to owning the brand. With Shedeur, the brand owns itself. Is it too soon for all this? Maybe. He's still a rookie. And let's not forget, Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and others are also vying for snaps in that quarterback room. But here's the wildest part. All of this noise, it's happening before Sanders even wins the starting job. And that, more than anything, tells you we're witnessing the rise of a generational disruptor. The depth chart may still feature Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett, but insiders are already echoing what the fans instinctively sense. Once Shedeur Sanders steps onto that field, he's not stepping off. That's why they tried to delay his rise. That's why they attempted to undervalue his worth. But instead of folding under the pressure, Shedeur flipped the narrative. He weaponized his draft position into strategic leverage. He walked into the league with less pay, but far more power. Now, the NFL isn't just facing another rookie quarterback. They're confronting a player who's rewriting the business model from within. Prime equity isn't just a buzzword. It's a revolutionary blueprint. A fusion of influence, branding strength, media leverage, and a CEO-level mindset forged under the legacy of Dion coach Prime Sanders and carried into battle by Shedeur. It's not an official clause yet, but it's already become a negotiation weapon for athletes with the vision to see beyond the playbook. Here's where it gets wild. Prime equity doesn't exist in the NFL's collective bargaining agreement, but Shedeur is operating as if it does, and frankly, he may force the league to adapt, because what he brings to the table isn't just arm talent. It's attention, audience, and serious money, the kind of money that makes owners squirm. Streaming and self-produced storytelling have changed the game. Shedeur doesn't need ESPN. He can bypass the gatekeepers entirely with live-stream docuseries, behind-the-scenes footage, and social content that speaks directly to millions. Let's talk about a rumored contract clause insiders are whispering about, Section 8.1 Prime Equity and Media Rights Addendum. It sounds futuristic, but it's already built on Shedeur's current playbook. Under this model, if he amasses 10 million combined views across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Twitch, he earns a $2 million 0 cents bonus, not for touchdowns, but for digital reach. Even more bold, he retains full ownership of all behind-the-scenes content. Locker room footage, his. Personal branding campaigns, his. If the Browns sell jerseys, posters, or merch with his likeness, he pockets 20% of the revenue. And the most disruptive twist yet, he reserves the right to co-invest in team media ventures, branded campaigns, docuseries, social documentaries. That's not just playing football, that's owning the storyline. Now let's get back to the field. A career completion rate over 71%, best in the FBS. That's what Shedeur brings to the huddle. And it's why the league is on edge. Because if this concept of prime equity becomes normalized, the power dynamics shift forever. No more waiting for network coverage, no more begging for endorsement scraps. Shedeur's model says, be the star, own the brand, cash the checks. And whether the league is ready or not, the future has arrived. Let's not pretend we don't know what happened. 144th overall, 5th round, a borderline insult to his resume, 90-plus touchdowns at Colorado. The numbers don't lie. The snub wasn't about football, it was about fear. Front offices weren't just evaluating a player, they were assessing a threat to the system. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't your average rookie QB. He's a CEO in shoulder pads. While others study the playbook, he's making power moves between drills, building a media empire, crafting a brand, cementing a legacy. Not worried about the 53-man roster, he's thinking generational influence. So today, we're not just discussing football, we're dissecting how this lie was weaponized, who gains from keeping Shedeur suppressed, and why this young man might just be the most dangerous quarterback in the entire NFL, not because he's reckless, but because he's ready. And what's coming next might just flip this league upside down. This myth didn't originate from Adam Schefter. It didn't come from Ian Rappaport. It didn't even come from Berea. No, this lie crawled out of the back alleys of the internet, pieced together by fan blogs, speculative odds, and a desperate hunger for chaos. It began with a whisper from Jonathan Adams of BetUs, not ESPN, not NFL.com, but a gambling affiliate site. Adams floated a maybe. Maybe the Browns release Shedeur. Maybe he lands in Indy. And that's all it took. One ambiguous column, and the NFL echo chamber took care of the rest. Then came the absurdities. Blogs like Motorcycle News Net, yes, a motorcycle gossip site, suddenly pivoted into sports coverage, publishing AI pure drivel with zero sources, no quotes, just baseless clickbait masked in pseudo-intellectual fluff. And from there, the wildfire spread. Let's not be naive. The media knew exactly what it was doing. Truth was never the goal. Engagement was. To Shedeur's name plus Colts plus chaos equals clicks. This wasn't about informing. It was about distracting. And who better to target than a young, unapologetically confident black quarterback who's already become a lightning rod for projection? Because here's the unspoken truth. This rumor was never about football. It was about power, about controlling the storyline, creating doubt. If we don't challenge this smear in real time, the lie calcifies. The fiction becomes folklore. But while they manufactured drama, Shedeur did something they never anticipated. He grinded. While anonymous insiders played telephone with fake headlines, Shedeur Sanders was in the brutal Texas heat, doing what he's always done. Not curated content for Instagram, not gimmicky PR stunts, real work, grit, precision, sweat equity. While the league sipped cocktails on private beaches and the media scrolled for gossip, Shedeur was at the Sanders Ranch, locked in with his wideouts, perfecting timing, chemistry, and trust. One of them, Gage Larvadane, an overlooked receiver who built real rhythm with Shedeur during rookie minicamp and OTAs. This wasn't a photo op, it was preparation, it was leadership, it was what winning looks like in July. You think Joe Flacco is out there in backyard sessions with fringe receivers? You think Daniel Jones is flying across states to build rapport with third stringers? Be serious. Shedeur's outworking every quarterback in that room before the pads are even unpacked. But that story, the one of discipline, leadership, and relentless grind, doesn't sell as easily. A black quarterback grinding in silence, that doesn't move headlines like trade rumors and locker room controversy. Because here's the playbook. Show up early and they call you arrogant. Stay late and you're a distraction. But Shedeur, he's been preparing for this moment his entire life. And while the media spun fiction, Shedeur was writing receipts. One's only real work can cash. Now we arrive at the root question. Why is there even trade talk at all? The answer is buried deep in the politics of Berea. Because this isn't about performance, it's about power. Let's drop the illusion. The Browns quarterback room isn't a meritocracy. It's a game of political chess. And right now, Shedeur Sanders isn't being treated like a quarterback. He's being treated like a threat, not because he's underperforming, but because his mere presence disrupts the hierarchy. Look at the so-called depth chart. Betting odds on Polymart list Flacco at 50% to start. Kenny Pickett, the NFL's most uninspiring former first-rounder, sits at 22%. And Shedeur, the man outworking them both in silence, Dylan Gabriel, the raw, untested rookie with zero NFL film, holds a 16% chance to start, and Shedeur, dead last at 14%. That's how little the so-called experts value the most polished passer in the building. Let's be clear. This isn't about what Shedeur lacks. It's about what he threatens to become if given a real shot. This league has always been uneasy with a fifth-round black quarterback outshining their hand-picked first-round poster boys. It always has. That's why Gabriel, who's never faced an NFL snap, is somehow listed above Shedeur. That's why Kenny Pickett, a player who's been the personification of mediocrity since day one, is viewed as safer. And Flacco, don't even get me started. The last time we saw him, he looked like a fossil, immobile, inaccurate, and one blindside hit away from retirement. Yet somehow, he still got the keys. Make it make sense. The truth? Shedeur isn't trading because of performance. He's trading because of perception. The NFL doesn't quite know what to do with a quarterback who talks like a CEO, trains like a vet, and plays like a problem. So instead, they keep him hidden, buried on the depth chart until they figure out how to mute him altogether. But while Cleveland hesitates, Indianapolis is starving for authenticity, and that's where this story really ignites. Let's call it what it is. The Colts don't have a quarterback competition. They have a quarterback crisis. This isn't about development, it's about identity collapse. Start with Anthony Richardson. On paper, the physical gifts are absurd. He's a walking human highlight, a quarterback built in a lab. But here's the issue. What happens when the camera stops rolling? You're left with injuries, inconsistency, and a star who's never available when it matters. As camp nears, he's nursing yet another health setback. Colts fans won't say it aloud, but deep down, they know it. Anthony Richardson might be the dream they need to wake up from. Then there's Daniel Jones, fresh off a failed stint in New York. Let's stop sugarcoating it. He's not a redemption story. He's a placeholder, a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, safe, temporary, uninspiring. He doesn't shift momentum. He can barely move the chains, yet somehow he is QB1 in Indy. We all remember the infamous run, the one where he tripped over his own feet. That play was a metaphor for his career. And in the storm of quarterback confusion, Shedeur's name surfaces. Not because he belongs in this chaos, but because he might clarify it. A steady hand, a real quarterback, one who reads defenses with surgeon-like precision and doesn't need a 4.340 to stay relevant. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Why is Shedeur even being mentioned in the same breath as failed projects? Because when you're black, confident, and undeniably talented, the system will always try to humble you before you ever take a snap. And that brings us to the comparison the league doesn't want to acknowledge. Shedeur Sanders versus Anthony Richardson. They represent polar extremes of the quarterback spectrum. And that's why the media has been working overtime not to elevate both, but to promote one while suppressing the other. This isn't about raw ability, it's about narrative control. Richardson is the prototype the NFL can't quit. Built like a linebacker, runs like a gazelle, jumps like an Olympian. He's a viral clip waiting to happen, but highlights don't win games, consistency does, and Richardson has never had it. Instead of inflaming the situation with sensational headlines, Manini took a more nuanced approach, urging viewers to consider the broader context of Shedeur Sanders' reality. A 21-year-old quarterback thrust into the spotlight where every move on and off the field is dissected. Manini acknowledged the speeding violations as lapses in judgment, but insisted they should not be used as a standalone indictment of Sanders' integrity or long-term potential. He emphasized the unprecedented pressure modern athletes endure, balancing the roles of quarterback, cultural figure, and digital persona. Under such scrutiny, every misstep becomes magnified, every error amplified. Manini concluded that any fair assessment of Sanders must account for the full spectrum of his character, on-field performance, and developmental arc, not just two traffic citations stripped of context. I see it as a process, Sanders said. I've got time to evolve, to grow into the game, to dissect defenses more intelligently, to absorb the wisdom of the veterans in the room. I see it as a blessing, and when it's my moment, I'll be ready. From the moment Shedeur Sanders stepped into Brown's camp, the energy shifted like a current had been plugged into the turf. What was supposed to be a routine practice instantly transformed into something electric. Veterans looked disoriented, like they were stuck in slow motion while Sanders danced in fast forward. Forget waiting his turn. Sanders didn't just clock in. He took the steering wheel. One snap, one spiral, and it was clear he wasn't here to learn the system. He was here to redefine it. His pocket awareness was surgical. His throws, heat-seeking. His confidence, unshakable. Observers quickly realized this wasn't your typical rookie rollout. Coaches widened their eyes. Players exchanged glances. Someone even checked the sidelines, half expecting a hidden camera crew to pop out. But there was no prank. This was simply Shedeur, a half-field general half-line reel. With footwork like a metronome and vision that sliced coverages into fragments, Sanders began diagnosing defenses with terrifying speed. On one rep, he calmly read Cleveland's single-high safety shell and laced a seam throw between a trailing linebacker and late-reacting safety. On another, he manipulated leverage with a shoulder fake, progressed through his reads, and delivered with pinpoint placement, upfield shoulder, in stride, perfect tempo. The Browns' defensive backs looked overmatched and out of sync. Press corners were neutralized by precision route releases. Linebackers widened to account for crossers, only to abandon the middle for Sanders to exploit. Safeties, stuck in purgatory between deep halves and underneath zones, couldn't recover fast enough. Attempts to jam were punished with back shoulder fades released before the break. Every defensive call, cover six, simulated blitzes, even rotated shells, was met with an elegant, ruthless answer. Sanders' control of the pocket was textbook. He climbed rather than drifted, bought time without panic, and remained balanced in chaos. When faced with a late stunt, he stepped up, re-identified a shallow crosser, and hit him in stride for 20 yards. His reads were quick, his throws were deliberate, and his processing speed left the defense grasping at air. What was expected to be a developmental track quickly became a crash course for the coaching staff, forcing them to rethink their depth chart in real time. The narrative that Sanders would sit and wait unraveled rep by rep. And while Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett lurked in the background, it was clear who had the juice. A defender barked at him between snaps, trying to get in his head. Sanders didn't flinch. He answered with a 30-yard laser on the very next play, splitting a high safety and a trailing corner like they were standing still. 5-step drop, base set, boom. Outside shoulder, explosion. By mid-session, even the Browns' most exotic coverages, quarter, half Tampa 2 rotating disguises, couldn't faze him. Sanders adjusted routes on the fly, back shoulders against press, quick posts against widened safeties, delayed releases to backs when linebackers overcommitted. He froze defenders with cadence, redirected protections pre-snap, and fired with anticipation so sharp some receivers were still finishing their breaks when the ball landed in their hands. And when the defense finally managed to blanket every route, Sanders reminded everyone he's not just a thrower. On 3rd and 6 twice, he tucked and scrambled, calculated, decisive, chains moved, statement made. By the end of practice, the Browns' defensive call sheet looked like a relic. Sanders had reduced a playbook to guesswork. He rendered blitzes irrelevant, exposed coverage holes with surgical timing, and manipulated spacing so masterfully the unit was forced into static base formations just to survive. This wasn't a scrimmage, it was a clinic. Still, some in the building didn't want to believe it. They didn't plan to draft him, didn't envision this firestorm. But as one analyst put it, the difference between Sanders and Tim Tebow, this kid can throw. And he's not causing noise, not complaining about reps, not making waves. He's just dominating. If you're cooking with the third stringers and dismantling the depth chart with your play, guess what? You've earned more. You deserve a shot with the ones. From the jump, Cleveland's secondary looked half a step behind. A free safety hesitated, Sanders climbed and ripped a 22-yard out before the DB could react. Roster fringe receivers looked like stars because Sanders gave them rhythm, timing, and space. On another 3rd and long, the defense finally caved the pocket with pressure. Sanders spun, split 2 rushers, and, without resetting, whipped a no-look rope to the boundary curl for a fresh set of downs. What should have been a sack became a highlight. The kid didn't need a runway, he just showed up, took command, and rewrote the pecking order. The Browns' coaching staff was left scrambling for answers. What began as casual intrigue around Shedeur Sanders has evolved into a full-blown quarterback controversy, one fueled by film room whispers, social media firestorms, and locker room momentum that can no longer be dismissed. For some, Sanders' rise is personal, maybe it's nostalgia, watching the son of Deion Sanders stir the same excitement his father once did. For others, it's his recent play, electric, unfiltered, undeniable, and many fans are now asking a fair question. Why not Shedeur? Why couldn't he overtake Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, or Kenny Pickett in a quarterback room that feels more like an open audition than a locked hierarchy? But that question has only gained steam in light of the latest controversy surrounding a leaked Giants draft interview. Reports claim the unreleased footage from that meeting was so contentious that both the Sanders family and the Browns considered legal recourse to prevent it from becoming public. The New York Giants added fuel to the fire by selectively releasing a short, edited audio segment from their conversation with Sanders, triggering immediate backlash. Fans demanded transparency, critics accused the team of orchestrating a smear campaign, analysts debated whether the partial release was a calculated PR maneuver or a botched attempt at damage control. Either way, the silence surrounding the unreleased footage has only intensified speculation. Online platforms like TikTok, X, and Facebook erupted. Commentators decried the Giants' lack of transparency. Podcast hosts bumped their show plans to cover the leak. Comment threads spiraled into frame-by-frame lip reads. The Giants' silence was deafening and damning. If there was nothing to hide, why the edits? Why not release the full tape? You want to test his skill set? Fine, he can ball. But don't forget the receipts. In college, he was out-earning NFL backups. He became a one-man media conglomerate. Clean, polished YouTube vlogs, pulling massive traffic, Twitch streams exploding with live engagement, Instagram lives that feel more like unscripted documentaries. This isn't a side hustle, it's strategy. Every go live is a monetized play. Every upload is a revenue stream. Shedeur built the machine before the NFL even called his name. Now that he's here, he doesn't need traditional media, he is the media. No filters, no PR spin, just direct-to-fan authenticity. And let's talk about adversity. The Browns want to see how he responds to being behind Gabriel and Pickett, not being QB1 yet, but that's where the real tension begins. The NFL has never had to deal with a player like this before. For decades, the league controlled the story. They owned the footage. They dictated the spotlight. But Shedeur, he flipped the entire system. He owns his name. He owns his image. He owns his message. So when NFL Network or ESPN wants to roll a Shedeur highlight, they might need to pay up or get his title right. Imagine, call me QB1 or pay a licensing fee. And when you hear him say, I'm better than that guy, better than Gabriel, but I'm not getting the reps, he's not whining. He's calling out the imbalance. The game used to be play well, hope for attention, maybe land a brand deal. Shedeur arrived already branded, monetized, and respected. He didn't chase the spotlight. He brought it with him. This isn't ego, it's evolution. It's power in motion, control over narrative, compensation, and cultural presence. And the league, they've never seen anything like this. Because most rookies enter the NFL hoping to get noticed. Shedeur Sanders walked in knowing he already was. Thank you. See you next video.